I never thought a plate of turkey and cranberry sauce could destroy my life, but there I was, fork halfway to my mouth, when Karen Whitaker leaned back in her plastic folding chair like she owned the whole damn cul-de-sac, which, technically, she did. Guess that extra 120 grand from Evelyn came in handy. She announced loud enough for every lawn chair in Sunnyvale Estates to hear. The crystal punch glasses clinked in fake celebration while my stomach dropped straight through the concrete patio. Grandma Evelyn's money. My inheritance. The cash I'd been counting on to actually live in the house, she left me instead of just surviving HOA hell. And everyone at the potluck knew except me. My name is Emily Carter. At 28, I was the newest and suddenly the poorest resident of Sunnyvale Estates, a picture-perfect Colorado suburb where the grass is always exactly 2 inches and the rules are written in blood. I'd moved into Grandma's tidy rancher 6 months after she passed, figuring the $240,000 split equally between her 2 grandkids would finally give me breathing room. Instead, I got Karen, HOA president for 12 glorious years, who'd kindly offered to handle the estate paperwork because family shouldn't be burdened with red tape, dear. I trusted her. Big mistake. The potluck had started like every other HOA event. 4 smiles, passive-aggressive compliments on lawn edging, and Karen in her stupid satin sash strutting around like the queen of suburbia. I'd spent the afternoon dodging her latest violation notice for my offensive welcome mat that was apparently 2 shades too brown. Property values, Emily. She'd chirped earlier, clipboard in hand. We can't have the riffraff thinking this is some trailer park. I'd smiled through gritted teeth, paid the $250 fine, and reminded myself it was temporary. Soon the inheritance would hit and I could breathe. Now, the turkey tasted like ash. Karen swirled her wine like she was toasting her own coronation. Without Evelyn's little gift, none of this new patio furniture would be possible, she laughed, gesturing at the gleaming teak set that definitely hadn't been bought with community funds. Her husband nodded along, oblivious. My cousin Sarah, who lived 3 houses down, suddenly found her potato salad fascinating. Even Mom, visiting from Denver, stared at her plate like it held the answers to life. They all knew. Months of polite smiles while Karen siphoned my future into her backyard empire. I gripped the flimsy chair until the plastic creaked. What did you just say? The words came out strangled. Karen's eyes, cold, triumphant, locked on mine. Oh, honey, don't look so shocked. Someone had to put Evelyn's money to good use instead of letting it rot in probate. I expedited things. Power of attorney, estate executor. Ring any bells? My mind flashed back 2 years. Grandma's funeral. Karen showing up at the lawyer's office with folders and that soothing voice. Let me handle the boring parts, sweetie. You're grieving. Sign here, here, and here. Temporary authority, so I can move fast on any opportunities. I've been drowning in sadness and legal jargon. I signed everything. Trusted the woman who'd brought Grandma casseroles and chaired the HOA for years. You forged my half, I whispered. The table went dead silent. Even the kids stopped chasing each other. Karen shrugged, wine sloshing. You were broke, living in that cramped apartment, driving that junker Honda. I did you a favor. Look at this place now. New community center, upgraded playground, my gorgeous new deck. Real investments that matter. Each word landed like a slap. The neighbors who'd nodded at every absurd rule suddenly couldn't meet my eyes. Sarah's husband checked his phone. Mom decided like this was another one of my dramas. I stood so fast the chair toppled. You stole from me. Karen's laugh rang out, rich and satisfied. I took what was already mine to manage. You signed the papers, Emily. Grow up. I grabbed my coat and stormed out, the cold November air hitting like a slap. Behind me, her voice carried, Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Thanks for the upgrades. I made it to my car before the shaking started. In the rear view, the cul-de-sac glowed with string lights and perfect pumpkins, every window a reminder of what she'd built on my grandma's grave. I drove 3 blocks, pulled over, and started digging through 2 years of emails on my phone. Nothing. No receipts, no court filings, no proof I'd ever been entitled to a dime. Karen had robbed me blind while I held the door open. But as I sat there in the freezing car, something harder than grief crystallized in my chest. Karen thought she'd won. She thought I was the weak new girl who'd just pay the fines and shut up. She was wrong. I wiped my eyes, started the engine, and drove home with steady hands. I had work to do. That sleepless night, the memories flooded back in high definition. Grandma Evelyn, sharp until the end at 91, had split everything fairly. House to me, cash divided equally. The lawyer had read it clear, $240,000 liquid assets for her 2 grandkids. I'd sat there calculating how $120,000 would pay off loans, maybe start that communications side hustle I'd always dreamed of. Then Karen had pulled me aside, hand on my shoulder, concerned neighbor face on full display. Probate is a nightmare, taxes, fees. Let me handle it. I've got experience with estates through the HOA sign these temporary papers so I could protect the assets. I'd signed. God, I'd signed everything without reading because grief and trust made me stupid. For 2 years, whenever I asked about the money, Karen had smooth excuses ready. IRS is dragging its feet on the estate tax, waiting for the best rates. My guy found discrepancies, better to be thorough. Always delivered with that patronizing smile like I was a child who couldn't handle money. And I believed her, because why would the HOA president, the woman Grandma trusted, lie? Now I pulled out my laptop and tore through every email. 6 months after the funeral, still tied up in probate, trust me. A year ago, patience, Emily. You'll thank me when you get the full amount instead of Uncle Sam's cut. No official letters, no bank statements, no copies of anything I signed. Everything verbal. Everything through a personal email. The truth stared back. There had never been delays. Karen had transferred the entire $240,000 into HOA enhancement accounts she alone controlled within weeks. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Honey, Karen's under a lot of pressure with the new community projects. Maybe apologize for making a scene. Another from Karen. Drama queen much? You signed the papers. Not my fault you didn't read them. And don't even think about making trouble. You have no proof. Then a third with a photo, me leaving the potluck, time-stamped minutes ago. My blood ran cold. She'd been watching. I closed the laptop and lay in the dark, rage crystallizing into something sharp and useful. Karen had made one fatal mistake in her gloating. She'd admitted it out loud in front of witnesses. And tomorrow I was going to find out exactly what that admission was worth. Sophie Martinez had been my best friend since college, and the only person I trusted with bank-level secrets. I called her at 7 a.m. The day after the potluck, voice still raw. I need your help and your banking access. Can we meet? No questions asked. She gave me her address in Lodo. Sophie worked as a senior analyst at Wells Fargo with database keys most civilians never see. Her apartment smelled like fresh coffee and justice. That which she breathed when I finished spilling everything. Okay, technically I can't do this, but screw HOA royalty. Let's burn her. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. Grandma's full legal name? Evelyn Rose Carter. Date of death November 15th, 2022. 20 minutes of silence. Then Sophie's face went pale. Holy crap, Emily. She spun the screen. There they were, transfers from Evelyn's estate account. December 2022, $80,000 to Sunnyvale HOA Enhancement Fund. January, $75,000. February, $85,000. All funneled straight into accounts Karen Whitaker controlled as sole signatory. Can you see where it went after? More typing. It gets better. The money didn't stay in HOA coffers. Major wires to something called Whitaker Holdings LLC. Sole member, Karen Whitaker. Then to Mountain View Renovations. Guess who's listed as co-owner? My stomach dropped. Her husband's consulting firm? Sophie nodded. Classic asset hiding. Tax evasion too. But here's the smoking gun. She pulled up a Colorado Secretary of State filing. Karen had claimed the full $240,000 as sole HO, a legacy contribution, for tax purposes. My name erased completely. She zoomed on a signature line. This tax document has your signature, except it doesn't. Side by side with my actual lease signature, the forgery was obvious. The E too sharp, the loop on the C missing. Federal fraud, Emily. Prison time fraud. My hands shook. Sophie burned everything onto a flash drive, made backups, and kept digging. She's been paying herself management fees from your dead grandma's estate, legal services to phantom firms, accounting for shell companies. She didn't just steal your half. She looted the entire thing and invented expenses to cover it. She handed me the drive like a loaded gun. This buries her, but you need a lawyer. Contingency basis, they'll fight for a cut of what they recover. With this evidence, they'll line up. As I left, she grabbed my arm. Be careful. Karen has everything to lose. This isn't just money, it's criminal. She could lose the house, the presidency, freedom. And one more thing. Your mom received $25,000 from Whitaker Holdings 6 months ago, listed as a community gift. The fresh betrayal hit like ice water. Mom hadn't just known, she'd been paid to stay quiet. I drove home with a flash drive, burning a hole in my pocket. Karen thought she'd covered her tracks. Thought the quiet new girl was too weak to fight. She'd left breadcrumbs, and now I had the map. Every forged signature, every fraudulent transfer, every fake fee, it all led back to her. For the first time in months, I smiled. Karen had taught me a lesson. In Sunnyvale Estates, community meant nothing when power and money were involved. Time to return the favor. Sunday morning, I showed up at Mom's house, hoping for answers, maybe even support. She opened the door in her silk robe, coffee in hand, looking perfectly composed. Emily, I wasn't expecting you. We sat in her spotless living room. Mom, I know about the $25,000 from Karen's company. She didn't even blink. I don't know what you're talking about. I laid the bank records on the table. Karen paid you to keep quiet, didn't she? Her face tightened. It's not that simple. Karen said you agreed to let her invest your portion. You'd get it back with interest once the project's paid off. I laughed bitterly. You took the bribe and looked the other way. She paced to the window. Karen's always been the one who gets things done. She knows how to handle money. You've been drifting, barely making rent, dating losers, living in that awful apartment. I thought she'd make better use of it. Eventually she'd help you too once you matured. I'm 28, Mom. Not a child, but you act like one. Always the victim. The words stung exactly like Karen's at the potluck. Get out, she said quietly. And don't come back with these accusations. Karen holds this neighborhood together. Without her, we'd all be drowning in fines and falling property values. I stood. I'm going to destroy her. With or without you. She turned away. She'll crush you. You have no idea what Karen's capable of when cornered. Outside, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Stop digging or things get ugly. Then another. I know where you live, where you work, who you talk to. A third came with a photo. Me leaving Sophie's apartment that morning. My blood froze. Mom had seen my face. I told you, she called from the door. Leave this alone. That evening I came home to find my front door slightly ajar. Nothing stolen, but everything touched. Drawers rearranged, papers shuffled, laptop moved an inch. A single note on the kitchen counter. I can get to you anytime. Back off. Karen's handwriting. I packed a bag and drove to Sophie's, checking mirrors the whole way. She'd already made up the couch. We're not just talking payback anymore, she said. This is criminal. Threats, forgery, breaking, and entering. My cousin at the FBI says save everything. I added the note to my growing folder of evidence. Karen thought fear would stop me. All she'd done was prove how much she had to lose. The perfect HOA president was terrified of the quiet girl she'd underestimated because she knew what I had on her was enough to burn Sunnyvale Estates to the ground. The war was officially on. William Hayes's office took up the entire 40th floor of the Republic Plaza with mountain views that made you feel small. Sophie's FBI cousin had recommended him. the lawyer other lawyers feared. I sat across from the silver-haired man while he reviewed every bank record, forged signature, threatening text, and the police report I'd filed for the inspection that had clearly been a break-in. 30 minutes of silence. Then Hayes looked up. "Miss Carter, in 35 years I've never seen a clearer case of estate fraud." "You'll take it." He leaned back. "Your Karen has already called 3 top firms trying to create conflicts of interest and box you out. She's spreading money around like fertilizer. But I don't like bullies, especially rich ones who think they own the neighborhood." He pulled up his screen. Karen Whitaker, HOA president, board member of 3 country clubs, major donor to the mayor. She's about to close an $8 million deal selling her community enhancement company. That deal dies if her reputation explodes. I straightened. I don't want to settle. I want justice. Hayes smiled. "You'll get both. Civil suit first. Stolen inheritance plus interest plus damages. That's the warning shot. Then we prep criminal charges for fraud, forgery, tax evasion, the nuclear option. Leverage the threat to force her hand." He tapped his legal pad. "But I need one more thing. You said she admitted it at the potluck." "Who heard?" I listed them: Mom, Sarah, her husband, a few other neighbors. "Get at least one willing to testify." That admission is gold. That evening I met Sarah at a quiet coffee shop in Wash Park. She kept checking over her shoulder. "I can't get involved, Emily." "I'm sorry. You hurt her." "She admitted stealing my inheritance." Sarah twisted her wedding ring. "Karen holds the mortgage on our house. Tom's business tanked last year. She bought it from the bank as a favor. If we cross her, we lose everything." Another tentacle of control. But she leaned in. "Jessica doesn't know the full story. Karen told her the money came from brilliant investments. She's been bragging to everyone. Jessica's father is a federal judge. She won't stay married to a criminal." I left with a plan. That night, I sent an anonymous email to Jessica attaching select documents. No accusations, just facts. The next morning, Hayes called. Karen's lawyer reached out already. They want to meet. Apparently, there's been a domestic situation. Jessica temporarily moved to her parents with the kids. My anonymous email had landed. The conference room felt like a battlefield. On their side, Karen, 3 attorneys from Morrison & Associates, Mom, and a furious Jessica sitting as far away as possible. On ours, just Hayes and me. Karen looked wrecked, unshaven, eyes puffy, her perfect sash replaced by a wrinkled blouse. Jessica's face was carved from ice. "Let's cut to the chase," Morrison began. "This is a neighborhood dispute that's gotten out of hand. My client is prepared to offer $50,000 to resolve all claims." Hayes actually laughed. $50,000? Your client stole $145,000 plus the undisclosed bonds, committed federal fraud, tax evasion, forgery. We're ready to file criminal charges this afternoon. You have no proof. Hayes opened his briefcase like a magician and laid out document after document. Each one hit the table like a bomb. Bank transfers, forged signatures, shell company wires, the fake tax filings. Karen's face drained of color. "That's not." Jessica cut her off, voice deadly quiet. "Just shut up, Karen." Mom tried. "Please, this doesn't have to destroy the neighborhood." I looked straight at her. "You destroyed it when you took her bribe." The room erupted. Morrison scrambling, Karen attempting explanations, Jessica demanding answers, Mom crying. Through it all, Hayes, and I sat perfectly still. Finally, Hayes stood. "Here's our one-time offer. Expires when we leave this room. Full $145,000 returned immediately, plus $35,000 interest at statutory rates, plus $50,000 damages for emotional distress and intimidation. Total $230,000. Karen exploded. "I don't have that liquid." "Then liquidate," Hayes said coldly. "Sell the patio furniture. Take a loan. I don't care. You have 48 hours or we file everything." Jessica pulled out her phone and hit play. Karen's own voice filled the room from the Potluck recording. "That extra $120,000 from Evelyn came in handy. I expedited things. You signed the papers. I did you a favor." Karen gasped. You recorded me? Jessica smiled coldly. I record everything when you're drunk bragging. Usually to prove your affairs. But this is so much worse. She turned to me. I'll testify about everything, including the offshore accounts and the investors she's defrauding with cooked HOA books. I'm a judge's daughter. I learned to document. The room went silent. Karen looked like she might vomit. Hayes seized the moment. New terms, $230,000 to Miss Carter, plus you resign as president immediately, plus you never contact her again. In exchange, we don't pursue criminal charges and Jessica doesn't share her extra evidence with the SEC. Morrison huddled with Karen. Fragments floated over. No choice, criminal exposure, total disaster. Finally, he spoke. We need a week to gather funds. 48 hours, Hayes repeated. 3 days, Morrison countered. Done. But if the full amount isn't in Miss Carter's account by 5 p.m. Thursday, we file everything. Papers were signed. Karen's hand shook so badly the pen scratched the table. When she looked at me, her eyes were pure hate. You've destroyed everything. I met her gaze. No. You destroyed everything when you decided I was worthless, when you stole from me, when you thought I'd never fight back. Thursday came and went. 5:47 p.m. and my bank account stayed empty. Hayes called immediately. She's testing us. Time to show we're serious. Within the hour, the criminal complaint landed with the DA. SEC and IRS notifications went out that night. At 8 p.m., Morrison called for an emergency meeting. This time, Karen came alone with Morrison, looking like a ghost, hollow eyes, trembling hands, watching her perfect life collapse. The community center deal fell through, Morrison explained. Someone leaked word of the investigation to the board. Hayes shrugged innocently. These things happen. We need more time, Morrison pleaded. Without that money, Karen has to liquidate everything. Not our problem, Hayes said. Criminal charges were filed an hour ago. Detective Rodriguez from Financial Crimes will be making an arrest tomorrow morning. Karen finally spoke, voice broken. Emily, please. I have a reputation, a husband, kids, and private school. If I go to prison, you should have thought about your precious community before you became a thief. Hayes paused dramatically. There is one option. Full confession recorded under oath detailing everything. The theft, the forgeries, the shell companies, plus immediate transfer of whatever liquid assets you have now, remainder paid within 30 days, plus an additional $75,000 punitive damages for missing the deadline. Morrison protested the total, but Hayes just smiled. It'll be much more expensive from prison. Good luck running any business with a federal fraud conviction. Karen's phone rang. She answered, face going even paler. The FBI is at my house now. Hayes' smile widened. Jessica must have shared her evidence. You should decide quickly. What followed was the total destruction of Karen's ego. For 2 hours, she sat in front of the camera confessing everything. How she planned the theft the day Grandma died. How she'd manipulated me into signing papers. The fake HOA fees she invented to siphon money, even bribing Mom to stay quiet. I thought Emily was weak, she said flatly to the camera. She'd always been the neighborhood charity case, bad with money, drifting through life. I convinced myself I was doing her a favor, investing it better than she ever could. And now I've lost everything. My presidency, my house, my reputation. Emily won. She was never weak. I was just too arrogant to see it. By midnight, $78,000 had transferred to my account, all she could access immediately. Papers were signed guaranteeing the rest within 30 days, secured by liens on her house, her cars, even that ridiculous new patio set. As we left, Karen stopped me in the hallway. Was it worth it destroying your own neighbor? You destroyed yourself, I answered. I just held up a mirror. I'll never forgive you for this. Good. I'll never forgive you either. The next 30 days passed in a blur. Karen's house went into a fire sale. Her Mercedes, her boat, her country club membership, all liquidated. The local news picked up the story. HOA president loses everything in inheritance fraud scandal. Jessica's divorce was brutal and very public. She took the kids, most of the remaining assets, and her father made sure Karen's name was mud in every legal circle. The IRS opened their own investigation. Every few days, another deposit hit my account as Karen sold another piece of her life. Hayes kept meticulous records, making sure every penny was accounted for. Mom called once, crying, begging forgiveness. I hung up. Sarah sent a Christmas card with a photo of her kids. No message. I kept it anyway. That neighborhood family was dead to me. On day 29, the final payment came through, $37,000 total, more than double what Karen had stolen. Hayes took his contingency fee and still left me with more than I'd ever imagined. But the money felt hollow. Justice had been served, yet at the cost of everything I once believed about trust and community. The local news ran the story again. Quiet residents recording exposes million-dollar HOA fraud. Karen's mugshot was everywhere, though she'd avoided prison thanks to a plea deal. She was now a convicted felon on probation, her HOA career over. Hayes called with the final update. Karen declared bankruptcy yesterday. The IRS will chase her for the next 20 years. Good. The judge's gavel came down with finality. The court rules in favor of the plaintiff, Emily Carter, in the amount of $37,000 in damages and restitution. I didn't smile, didn't cry, just sat there feeling 2 years of weight lift while somehow feeling heavier. Behind me, I heard Karen's sharp intake of breath, the shuffle of her cheap suit, a far cry from the designer sash she once wore like a crown. Outside the courthouse, Denver's December air bit at my face. Snow dusted the steps where Karen stood with Morrison, looking like a ghost of her former self. Her community center company had folded. The house in Sunnyvale now belonged to Jessica. The woman who once bragged about her upgrades at the Potluck now lived in a studio apartment, working freelance consulting gigs to pay court-ordered restitution. She saw me and started to approach, but Morrison grabbed her arm. Good. We had nothing left to say. Sophie met me at a wine bar that evening. So how does it feel to win? I stared at my untouched glass of Malbec. Empty. I got the money. I got revenge. I destroyed her completely. But Grandma's still gone. The neighborhood I thought was family never existed. And I can't shake the feeling I've become someone she wouldn't recognize. Sophie grabbed my hand. You became a survivor. There's a difference. The money sat in my account for weeks before I touched it. Every time I looked at the balance, I saw Karen's haunted face, Mom's tears, Jessica's cold fury, the neighbors who turned away. Finally, on a snowy January morning, I decided. I kept exactly $145,000, my original inheritance plus the undisclosed bonds. Not a penny more, not a penny less. The rest, the punitive damages, the interest, the extra blood money, I donated. $80,000 to the Colorado HOA Victims Legal Aid Fund, $50,000 to a shelter for women escaping financial abuse, $32,000 to establish a scholarship at Grandma's alma mater for first-generation students fighting bureaucracy. With my rightful inheritance, I did what I'd always planned, paid off my student loans, put a down payment on a small condo in Capitol Hill, nothing fancy but mine. Started my own consulting firm with Sophie as partner. We specialized in helping small businesses with communications, but our real passion project became pro bono work for residents crushed by HOA abuses. Turns out there were way more of us than I'd imagined. Mom reached out once more 6 months later, a handwritten letter full of apologies and justifications. I read it once, then shredded it. Some bridges are meant to stay, Ash. Sarah sent a Christmas card with another photo of her kids. I kept it. Not sure why. Karen never contacted me again. I heard through the legal grapevine she'd moved to Kansas where no one knew her story, working a tech support job, living quietly, paying her debts. The queen of Sunnyvale Estates had flown too close to the sun, wings melted by her own arrogance. A year after the ruling, I stood in the cemetery placing flowers on Grandma Evelyn's grave. The headstone was simple and elegant, just like her. "I'm sorry, Grandma," I whispered. "Sorry it came to this. Sorry your legacy became a war. Sorry I had to become someone hard to get justice." The wind rustled through the pines, and for a moment I could almost hear her voice. "Sometimes, sweetheart, the hardest battles are with the people we love most." I'd won the war, reclaimed what was mine, proved I wasn't the weak girl everyone assumed. But standing there, I realized the victory hadn't made me whole. It had just made me different. Someone who knew trust was a luxury, community was conditional, and sometimes the only person you could count on was yourself. The money didn't heal the betrayal. The revenge didn't restore my faith in neighbors. But it taught me something valuable. I was stronger than anyone, including Karen, had ever imagined. As I walked away, my phone buzzed. Another potential client referred by Hayes. Another resident, another HOA theft, another neighborhood torn apart by greed. "Hello," I answered. "Yes, I can help you. I know exactly what you're going through." Because I did. I'd survived it, fought through it, and come out the other side scarred but standing. The girl who once sat silently at that potluck, shocked by Karen's betrayal, was gone. In her place stood someone who understood that sometimes justice means destroying everything to rebuild from scratch. Sometimes the price of dignity is everything you once held dear, and sometimes that price is worth paying. Thank you for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop it in the comments so we can connect. Don't forget to subscribe and share your own HOA horror stories. Have you ever been crushed by a power-hungry Karen? How did you fight back? Let's talk down below.